Hi, everybody. This is Candace with Bare Borders Travel. As we all know, this little thing called COVID-19 has us all stuck in the house. It's made us all change our plans as far as travel, as far as our family life, our work life. So I decided while I'm at home and I have a lot of time on my hands to actually start a small series where we're going to be discussing travel. Past travel, future travel, my past travel experiences, others' past travel experiences, and what they've learned. And today I have a special guest. So this is my best friend, Sharonda. Hi, Sharonda.
Hey, Candy. Hey, everybody.
All right. And today we're going to talk about two things. So this is going to be two episodes. I'm going to break it up in two episodes. So first, we're going to talk about solo travel as women, women going on trips by ourselves. And some people think that that's scary, but it's actually a fun thing. So Sharonda just took a trip. She just took a really interesting solo trip recently, actually, like right before all of this stuff ended. Where did you go?
I went to Lake Atitlán, Guatemala.
And how did you choose that location? Like that's like a eeny, meeny, miny, mo type of deal in choosing that location coming from Milwaukee.
Yeah, it definitely was an eeny, meeny, miny, mo thing. I didn't even know that Lake Atitlán was a thing. I decided that I wanted to do a solo travel trip for my birthday. I hadn't done any solo travel since 2016. And my birthday's in late January. I knew I couldn't travel until February. So I literally pulled up Google Flights and started to Google the continents to see where there were cheap flights. I wanted to go somewhere I'd never been before. Central America was totally a win. The flights were round trip at the time, anywhere between just under $200, but no more than $300. So I narrowed it down to
From
Belize
Milwaukee?
and Guatemala. But well, from Chicago, which is
Okay.
90 minutes from Milwaukee. Actually, it's almost impossible to find direct flights from Milwaukee, but taking a shuttle from Milwaukee to Chicago was no biggie. So um,
Do
it
you
was
know that you
important.
can take trips to Europe from Detroit? I'm like way sidebar, but there are direct flights from Detroit to Europe out of all places. But I
Really?
digress. Go ahead. Yeah, I know, right? Anyway, keep going.
Okay. So what was important to me on this trip was I needed somewhere that I could just really relax, somewhere really calm, somewhere peaceful. It was really important to me to be able to unplug. So Central America and this particular city were perfect. Lake Atitlan is gorgeous. It's surrounded by mountains. It's quite an experience to even get there from the airport. It's not like you can just take a train and be there. It's off in the cut. That's the best way to explain it. So it was perfect for what I was looking to do as far as getting away, unplugging, and just kind of having some moments to reflect. That was really the purpose of this trip.
Okay. So, in making that decision to choose Guatemala, and it could have been any place. I mean, you could have went to Costa Rica, you could have went anywhere. But was there a sense of fear in making that decision to go by yourself as a woman traveling to a foreign country?
But initially there was, and one of the things that I did to overcome that fear was I'm in a few social media travel groups. So I did some searches with posts to see who had maybe visited Guatemala before, what they had to say.
Hmm.
Was able to ask around to get feedback, which is really important when you're looking to travel alone. If you can find people that have been there to get helpful hints, that's completely invaluable. Did the same thing when I went to Cuba. So at first I was a little bit, it was just the fear of the unknown because I never imagined in a million years that I would go to Guatemala. But once I started to do the research, what I found out about the people, what to expect, the fear really dissipated. There was truly nothing to be afraid of.
Okay, so I have children, you have children, we have children. Was there any guilt about leaving your children behind?
No, no, I cannot stress that enough. There was no guilt at all. And the reason is because, like I said, this entire trip for me was a moment to sit back and reflect and to unplug. And even in unplugging, that means, yes, get away from the computers that I sit in front of for work, but also social media, but even just my everyday life. I think one of the things that has been very important to me with solo travel is it's the opportunity to remember that I was a human being that had interests before I became someone's mother. And
Amen.
so that's something that you can't feel guilty about. So yeah, now they're older. My entire family is still in Milwaukee, so they're in good hands when I go. It's fine.
I used to feel guilty, especially when the kids were younger. I would feel guilty about leaving, and I would call multiple times a day to check on them. But as they've gotten older, you're absolutely correct. As women, as mothers, just as individuals in general, you need that time to yourself because you're always giving. You're always
Yeah.
giving pieces of yourself all day, and you need time. You need the time to refill. You need to recharge yourself.
Right.
Okay, so I have a question. So Guatemala, before we even talk about how you got there, what you did, do you speak the language?
Okay, so I speak very broken Spanglish, and you've known me for a really long time. I spent years taking French from fifth grade through college, and I decided to double up and take Spanish in college. So I speak this really broken. I understand the language well because there's not a ton of difference in the Romance languages, but it's, responding is it's real choppy. So I guess I say that to say I can understand it. It's really broken when I respond. But most, if you've done any traveling, you'll find that most people, especially in Spanish speaking countries, also speak English. It's not like
Mhm.
America where it's in other countries, it's an automatic that you're going to learn a different language. So
Yeah.
they did speak English, but I did try to touch up on my basics so that I'm not that American that's just expecting you to accommodate my English without me trying to speak to you in your native language. So I mean, I got by. It was fine.
Okay, so where did you stay? Where did you stay? How'd you get there? Where did you stay? Wait, before that, how long was the flight?
Okay, so the flight wasn't as bad as one would think. I actually had a layover in Houston. So here's the thing. I'm not picky when it comes to travel. It's all about me. I just need you to get me there, and I need to be able to stay somewhere that is comfortable and clean. I don't necessarily anticipate spending a lot of time in the hotel. So I actually took Spirit, and I'm willing to discuss that. I know, brave, right? Uh, but funny thing is, the Spirit offers a lot of flights to Central America. The planes are slightly bigger. At least it felt that way for me. I'm only 4'11", so everything seems bigger. Flying down there, and I had a layover in Houston. But from Houston to Guatemala, it was maybe like 2.5 hours, so it was not
That
bad at
wasn't
all.
bad. That wasn't bad. I refuse to fly Spirit. I refuse to fly. I flew Spirit one time. And I was flying from Milwaukee to Phoenix to visit my husband because he was doing some military training. And I got on the plane, and the man next to me was very nervous, and he was panting and huffing the whole time. We haven't even taken off yet. And he's like, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm like, what's the matter? And he's like, I just got out of jail, and I've never been on a plane before. And I was like, 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 all right, but you have to calm down because they come get you when you act a fool on a plane, and we both trying to get to Phoenix, so let's cool, let's chill out. And as the plane started to take off, he just like completely flipped out, talking about how he needed his weed. And I spent the entire flight literally calming this man down so we can make it to Phoenix, and so he wouldn't flip out. So no, thank you. I refuse.
Oh,
I
so
refuse to
I've
fly
flown a couple
Spirit.
times, and it's okay. Like you definitely have to be a person who's willing to read the fine print. If that's not your thing and you don't want to plan ahead, then yeah, I wouldn't recommend Spirit. I've actually done it with my children. Being an ex-military spouse probably helps because I can fit, 30 days worth of clothes in like a knapsack. So that helps. Uh, but it was a good flight. The crew was good. The plane itself was fine. It was comfortable for the duration. I couldn't imagine, visiting you in Morocco on a Spirit flight, but it worked out. But it wasn't a long flight. And when I got there, I actually stayed at resort is not the right word. It's almost like a little inn right on the lake, and it was beautiful. I found it on Airbnb, and that was also an eeny, meeny, miny, mo type thing.
Okay.
I began to look at places to stay in Guatemala and Belize, and actually where I stayed was one of the things that made me choose was a Teflon over Belize. It was literally you had the opportunity to rent bungalows on this
Mm.
property. And mine was literally built on the side of the mountain that overlooks the lake in a tree. So it was like a tree house, which is like, cool, okay, this is
Yeah, that
great.
is cool.
It had no windows. There were only doors leading into the space, and there was a French door that let out to your balcony, but it was completely open space. The weather was beautiful. It was in the 70s and 80s, which, you know, is like heaven when you leave in Milwaukee,
Mhm.
Wisconsin in February. And it was just really, really relaxed. There were no TVs at all in the space. There was Wi-Fi, so I could stay connected to family, but it was genuinely a place where I could just go and unplug. And you know what was amazing to me was I stayed 4 days, 3 nights, and all in with my tab and eating meals there and the nightly stay, I
Mhm.
spent less than $300 American.
Yep. Gotta love it. You really gotta love it. You really gotta love it. So a lot of times when I guess stereotypically, if people are like women are traveling by themselves or they're taking a solo trip, people assume that they're having or they're in search of a eat, pray, love moment. So when you took this trip, were you in search of anything?
Yeah, definitely was. This was, like I said, I had not done solo travel since 2016. And the reason I hadn't done solo travel is because I kind of let life get in the way. You know, the first time I'd ever traveled alone was in 2016, and that was a trip I did to Italy. And we'll talk about that later because you actually hung out with me a little bit there.
Mhm.
And it was important to me to be able to actually get away and be able to just kind of reflect over the past year. Like 2018 and 2019 were rough, and I was in a space where I really needed the opportunity just to disconnect, like physically disconnect from my surroundings to really, um, if you will, discover kind of the why behind some of the decisions I made, the things that I experienced, even the time to grieve some of the losses that I had in relationships and just, you know, leaving old jobs, old careers behind and moving forward. The thing about being a mom and being a professional is you're always going, 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 and you don't
Mhm.
take the time you need to actually look at those things that may have been very traumatic to you. And I knew I had enough awareness to know that I had experienced some trauma, but I hadn't created the space to deal with it. And so that's what I wanted to do in Guatemala. And I literally did that. I spent most of the time there in a hammock under the sun, drinking 75-cent beers, and, you know, just kind of going in and out of sleep and reading books.
So, did you find it? Did you find what you were looking for? It sounds
I
like it.
I did. I definitely did. One of the books that I took along with me, and it's a really great book. I'm not a fan of the title. It's been around for a while, but it's called Women Who Love Too Much by Robin Norwood. And I just wish it had a different title, only because it gives the impression that um, there's a group of us who are losing ourselves because we love too much. And I would argue that it's not that we love too much. I think sometimes our definition of what love is key, and we mistake codependency for loving. And that
Mhm.
has been my pattern in my adult years. In my 20s and my 30s, I have sought out relationships where um, it is more of an addiction and a codependency than it is pure love and what I understand it to be now. So I really needed to sit with that and sort that out. So that was kind of my Julia Roberts eat, pray, love moment. I needed some space to kind of figure it out.
Okay. All right. So, do you have any recommendations for women deciding to go on a solo trip? Because for me personally, like I try to go to Paris every year, and for the past 6 to 7 years, I have made it happen. And it's sometimes I go by myself, sometimes I don't. And one of those trips, literally, I laid in the bed for 3 days and read a book before I actually decided to go out and okay, I'll finally see a museum or I'll finally I don't know, talk to someone else because I, I didn't unless I was going to get the breakfast from downstairs in the hotel. So sometimes you, like I said, you need to recharge. Everybody needs that. You just need to do something that makes you feel good. And it doesn't have to be expensive. Like she said, she went to Guatemala for $300, and I personally, and just my disclaimer, I live on the other side of the pond right now. I'm from Milwaukee. Right now, I live in Morocco. I used to live in Spain. So travel is much, much, much more affordable when you are on this side of the world than it is on the other side of the world. So, in saying that, what would you recommend for other women who want to plan solo trips?
Well, the first thing I would say is that when you decide to go solo, decide where you want to go first before you start sharing it with the world. And I say that because it's been my experience every time that I've gone off that the idea of a woman traveling alone is something that is very, very frightening to most
Mm-hmm.
people. And so what usually ends up happening is that while people are very happy that you have the opportunity to travel and they want you to have a good time, their own fears get in the way and they begin to project on you.
That's
And
true.
so it becomes you are trying to plan a trip and do something for yourself while now combating everybody else's fears of what
Mm-hmm.
could happen to you. So I say that to say keep it to yourself until you know where you're going. And
It's
even
true.
then, be very selective with who you share the information with, just because you will meet opposition. It's just, and I've experienced it more with the elders in our community than the younger people, just because it's just unheard of. It's outside their scope of understanding why a woman would want to go off gallivanting by herself,
Mm-hmm.
and they would use the word gallivanting to another country. And then once you decide that you are going to do it. Decide what you want to get out of the trip. Is it a trip where you want to go sightseeing? Do you just need to unplug and kind of govern yourself accordingly? Don't push yourself too far. Don't feel like because you are going somewhere you have to see all of the things. So, in the next episode, we'll talk about how you and I spent time in Paris and we spent time in Italy. And there's just so much to see, but there's only so much time. So you don't want to push yourself where you are spending your entire time meeting an agenda and you don't truly get a chance to enjoy the experience. And then do your research. You got to do your research. Traveling alone as a woman, you do want to know. Um, it's important to understand what the crime statistics and things are in that country, but you don't want to get hung up on it. Anything can happen anywhere and you want to be able to travel and be safe, but you also, to me, it's more important to understand the culture, know what you're getting into, and be able to govern yourself accordingly. So, understanding how they dress and what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, so that when you are packing your suitcase, you don't end up in a situation where you are now in a country and you don't have anything appropriate to wear. I would encourage anyone to learn at least basic phrases in the
Mm-hmm.
native
Great.
language so that you can ask questions and not expect people to speak English because that's your comfort zone. Um, you're a visitor. You're a visitor in other states, and I'm a firm believer in when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And so, and we struggle with that as Americans. We go into other spaces and we expect people to speak English and to cater to us, and that is not how you want to travel. So do your research. Don't allow others to discourage you, and then do it. Don't feel bad about it. Understand why you're doing it, and then actually go out and do it.
Yep. Just what you just said about learning simple phrases. So for me, learning how to order the food is like the most important. So at least learn how to order your food and how to say right and left and ask for directions and say help. Learn how to say
Right.
help and hello and goodbye and thank you.
Yep.
So
Hello.
that's like
And where's the
the basic.
bathroom?
Yep, where's the bathroom? Yep, yep. But I mean, listen, I can't speak a lick of Arabic, but dejaj, I can order the chicken, and that's all you get. That's all you get from me, and so that works out. Okay, so thank you for getting us started with this, and thank you for doing this because we're at home and we have nothing to do. And I like your shirt.
Thank you.
All right, so yeah, Tarjay. Ooh. So this is the end of the first part of this interview. We are actually going to take a break, and then we're going to, if you can tune into the second part of the interview, we're going to talk about trips that we have taken together and why it's important for friends to take trips together. All right. So thank you guys for tuning in, and remember to subscribe.